In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to create an SQL Server database in Azure. So there are two tasks that I will perform. I will create the database, that is the SQL Server database in Azure. I will then perform a test on the database by querying the data inside that database. So on my Azure portal, I will search for the SQL databases. So I'll click on it. Now, ordinarily, I'm supposed to create this SQL server first, but I'll still be able to create the server while creating the SQL database because the SQL server is supposed to be the first thing before the SQL database. So I'll click on create, and this will give me form whereby I'll be able to enter basic information about the database that I want to create. And those informations, as usual, will form part of the configuration of that database. Once again, some information can be changed after the database has been deployed, and while some cannot be changed once you deploy the database. So for the subscription, I have only one active subscription, and that is the pay as you go. And for the resource group, I will use RG1 as the resource group, and I will click OK. For the database, I will call it DB1, and this is the server. So assuming that I've created the server before, I'll just come to the drop down here and select the server. However, I can go to this create new link and I'll type the server name, or I will configure the server name. So I'll call it 1759 database. SQL database server. 1759 SQL database server, and that's it. And the location, I will pick the location that I want. In this case, I will leave it like this, East US. And I'll scroll down. There is this section called authentication method. Now, there are three types of authentications, or three methods rather, by which we can authenticate into the SQL server. So you have to set the right one. The first one is to use Microsoft Entra ID authentication. It simply means that you don't need to create the account of the users that will have access to the SQL database in the SQL database. Rather, since they are already in the Microsoft Entra ID, they can have access. They will be able to connect using their Microsoft Entra ID into the SQL Server database. The second one is saying we can use both the SQL authentication and Microsoft Entra ID. So you can pick any of them at the point that you can pick any of them once you want to authenticate. That's what it simply means. And the third one is to use SQL authentication. SQL authentication is simply saying that you have to create a username and password now that will form part of the configuration. So this username and password now will not be the main administrator of this database. It can also create other database later for the same server. So at this point, I will just pick SQL authentication, and I will enter the admin login. So I will use SQL user, then the password. I'll confirm the password, then I'll click OK. So this is the server now. So it has created the server. It has created the server now. Now, look at this. Want to use SQL Elastic Pool. Now, it's set to no. At this point, we'll set it to no because of what SQL Elastic Pool is doing. So we'll just set it to no. Then for the workload is actually development because I'm using it for testing. I'm not using it for production environment. And the compute and storage is general purpose serverless. So it is 32 gigabyte of storage and one vCore. So that is the compute and storage. So the compute is the one vCore, storage is the 32 gigabyte. Now, if you scroll down, you'll see backup strategy redundancy. And we have local redundancy, zone redundancy, geo redundancy, and geo-zone redundancy. So it's just for us to select the right one. Let's leave it like this, geo redundancy. If you scroll up, you see networking. Under the networking, you can select under the network connectivity. Under the connectivity method, you can select no access, public endpoint, private endpoint. No access simply means that nobody will have access to the SQL database unless maybe later on you're able to now perform advanced configuration. You can also use public endpoint and private endpoint. Public endpoint means that they can use a public IP address to access it, but you still need to add that public IP address to the database. If you fail to add it to the database, they will not be able to sign into that database. So I'll use public endpoint. And the next thing now is on the firewall rule. Look at this place. Allow Azure services and resources to access this server. Yes. And add current client IP address. The normal thing for me to do here is to set it to yes because I've already said I want public endpoint. So it simply means now that by setting it to no, we will still not be able to connect to the database. So I want us to see this in action. So I will not set it to yes. So what we'll now do now is that I will go to the security tab, and in the security tab, under the enable Microsoft Defender for SQL, leave it at not now because we are not talking about the security. Nothing for now about security of the database. We are just talking about configuration or creating the database. If you go to additional settings, under the use existing database, you can leave it like this. That is, you want database to be empty. So it simply means now that database will be empty. Then it's now left for you now to now create the database. Create tables. Now begin to add data into it. Or you can use backup, whereby you can upload or reload any existing backup into this database. But I will choose this sample because we want to test on certain things. So this sample is AdventureWorks LT database. This is one of the sample database from Microsoft. So we're going to add this to this SQL Server database. Then I'll click OK here so that it can actually do that. Next, I'll click Review plus Create. So it's going to cross-check this information that I've entered, and it's going to determine if I can go ahead to create the database. And once it's ascertained that the information is okay, then I can now go ahead and create and click Create so that I can create the database. So I can click Create now. So it's actually validating the information right now. So it's initiating the deployment now. And after the initialization, it's going to start deploying the database into the Azure. see, it's submitting the deployment now. So after submitting the deployment, you will now start creating the database in Azure. So that is the process that you need to go through to create a database in Azure. I'm talking of SQL Server database. So I will pause this video now because it will take like 2 to 5 minutes. It depends on other factors for this database to be ready. So once the database is ready, I will come back. So the database is ready because now the information is that the deployment is complete. So I can click on this to go to the resource. From here now, I will see information about this database through the overview, like resource group. You can see the resource group and other informations like the location, and the status of the database is showing online. And this is the server name. So if I take this server name now and I open SQL Server Management Studio and I put this server name there and I provide the username and password, I will use the SQL Server Management Studio to connect to this database. But I'm not going to do that. Rather, I want to connect through this portal. So I will go to Query Editor Preview, and from the Query Editor Preview, I will supply the login and the password. So the login is already SQL user. Let me type the password. Is going to fail. And why? Why? He said he cannot open the server. The client with IP address 95.210.55.195 is not allowed to access the server. And you know the reason was because we did not have that client's IP address. But this will not happen if I use SQL Server Management Studio to do the connection. So if you are experiencing this and you want to still connect through this query editor, what can you do? What you need to do is to go back to the overview of the SQL Server, and once you get to the overview of this SQL Server database, you will look for Set Server Firewall. Here is the button, Set Server Firewall. You look for it, and on the Set Server Firewall, under the Public Access tab, scroll down and look for the firewall rule. Under the firewall rules, you should see the button that says you can add your client's IP address. This is the same IP address that he was complaining about. So I will click on this button and I will click Save. So it's updating the firewall rule now so that it can allow this IP address to sign in to this database. Now that this is ready, I'll go back to the same place, but I cannot see the query here again. Can't see the query editor preview again. So I'll go back from here and I will click on the query editor again, and the password. I need to supply the password and username again. Then I'll click OK. At this point now, it's supposed to sign me in into the SQL server. So we'll wait for the next line of action. If it fails, then something else is going on. But as you can see now, it is successful. So here now, if you expand this, these are the tables. Remember that we added a default database, AdventureWorks LT. And if you have worked with AdventureWorks LT before to query your database, you realize that these are the sample tables in the AdventureWorks database. So from these sample tables now, what I want to do now is to test it if it's truly working. So I will type sample query. So I want to query from that database. So I want to query from two tables. The first table is the product category and also product table. So sales.product category, if I expand it, there is a column there called product category ID. So I'm going to use that product category ID. Here is a primary key. Now, what about the product? If I go to sales.product, the product's category ID is now a foreign key. It is no longer a primary key. It is now another key that is now linked to this one. So it's just that this one did not display very well. But if I use my SSMS, that's SQL Server Management Studio, to view this, you will notice that the product category ID is a foreign column, or is a foreign key. So since I've established the common column that I want to use to merge the two tables together, because that's what I want to do now. I want to query from the two tables. It simply means that I will do an imaginary merging of the two tables. And the only way that can happen is I need to locate if there is any common tables. So I can identify the common tables now as the product category ID is a primary key field in the product category table and is a foreign key field in the product. So I will type here, I will say select 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 from sales dot product category as PC, join sales dot product will be P. This is what we'll call table alias. Then I'll now say on PC dot product category ID is equal to P dot product category ID. Then what I need to select now is I want to select top 20. What information do I need there? Although it's going to be 20 because I need top 20. But the column I need now is PC dot name as category name, comma, P dot name as product name. So I'll click run. You can see, so this is what this query actually returned. So this is just to show us now that the sample table we deploy inside the SQL server database is working perfectly. The SQL server database is working perfectly. Although we deploy a sample database, you can as well deploy it without a sample database. It simply means that you want to be using your real life database. You want to be sending data into that database in a real life situation. So what we have done now is that we have created the SQL Server database in Azure, and it was successful. We're also able to query the sample data inside the database that we deploy inside that particular SQL server.
Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing to this channel. Please, let me know what you think in the comment section. And do not forget to leave a like and share this video. See you in the next one.